Possibly one of the funniest things that I've seen is out of all of the crying that Sony has done over the whole Call of Duty Activision thing, all of their crying actually helped Nintendo get Call of Duty for a decade on their systems, because with a recent Twitter drop when it comes to tweets from Microsoft brass Phil Spencer and Brad Smith, Call of Duty is officially confirmed for Nintendo platforms for the next decade, and this obviously comes from Microsoft wanting this deal to go through and to prove that they are not going to monopolize the Call of Duty franchise and keep it away from the big bad Sony machine where so many people play Call of Duty. So Microsoft is just out there letting people know, and Nintendo is just this like bystander that just happens to benefit from something amazing happening. Almost kind of like, let's say you see like a Briggs truck, right? Like the armored trucks, and it's leaking money everywhere, and you just happen to be at the right place at the right time, and it's just like, all right, well, I guess I'll just grab a few of those bars if nobody else is going to take it. This is absolutely the equivalent of Nintendo doing nothing and somehow winning. It's just that there's no other way around it, and I think that's how Nintendo kind of feels, because they're just sitting by doing their Splatoon and Smash Brothers and Mario and just having a good old time with the Nintendo Switch, working with Japanese developers to get some of these games out, and all of a sudden here comes Call of Duty, a game that hasn't been on a Nintendo platform in almost a decade. I think the last Call of Duty game was the Call of Duty game on the Wii U. I think it was Ghosts, which was quite some time ago. So that was 2013-ish or so. So it's been almost a decade, or pretty much might be a decade by the next time that we see the Call of Duty game, if they start with next year or the year after. So I find this to be incredibly hilarious. But before we get into more of this, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get all of my videos first. Nintendo Switch and RPG news, of course, the best what we're doing here right here on PlayerEssence. So anyway, let's talk about this. So Microsoft put out a statement on Twitter and had this to say: Microsoft has entered into a 10-year commitment to bring Call of Duty to at Nintendo following the merger of Microsoft and Activision Blizzard Company. Microsoft is committed to helping bring more games to more people, however they choose to play Activision Blizzard. Then also Brad Smith with a quote tweet of Phil Spencer. And Brad Smith, for those who don't know, he's the vice chair and president at Microsoft, and he also is a co-author of Tools and Weapons and host of the Tools and Weapons podcast. He's also a husband, dad, and proud native Appleton, Wisconsin. Go Badgers. Now let's talk about this, because he also had this to say: our acquisition will bring Call of Duty to more gamers and more platforms than ever before. That's good for competition and good for the consumers. Thank you, Nintendo. And any day Sony wants to sit and talk, we'll be happy to hammer out a 10-year deal for PlayStation as well. Goodness gracious, shots, nukes, everything possibly fired, because as you can see, he separates that. He says, thank you, Nintendo. Any day Sony. So they're saying, hey, Nintendo sat down and worked with us, but it's also one of those things like beggars can't be choosers. Nintendo never got Call of Duty, wasn't planning on getting Call of Duty. Like I said, it's the Brinks truck that's just going through and money's just flying up, and it just happens to land right in your lap. So Nintendo's like, sure, why not? I guess. I mean, who knows who will buy it on our system, but we do have the Nintendo Switch, that's popular, and whatever Nintendo's doing next, that's probably going to be popular too, because they're going to follow in the footsteps of the Nintendo Switch with upgrades. So I think that definitely calling out Sony here officially, and Nintendo getting a 10-year commitment to Call of Duty because Sony brought up such a stink about it, is funny. Like, that is like the side thing that happened, because it's crazy. If Sony never brought this up in this type of way, I highly doubt Microsoft would have been committed to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms. Now, yes, they might have done it anyway down the road, but I think that this basically ensures that, hey, they're not trying to remove stuff, we're trying to add stuff with Call of Duty. Now, other Activision Blizzard franchises, well, ooh boy, those are on the table when it comes down to it. Those might get chopped off from other systems, but when it comes to Call of Duty, which was the main contention point with all this stuff that Sony is bringing up, it was Call of Duty, it clearly shows the board in the UK, it shows anybody else, the FTC, antitrust, US here, whoever else, Microsoft isn't going to be hoarding Call of Duty for themselves for the next decade at least. Give it about a good decade. Maybe we see something after that, but if they're making bucket loads of money on this Call of Duty being on all platforms, it doesn't make sense for that to happen. Now, Phil Spencer also followed that up with, I'm also pleased to confirm that Microsoft has committed to continue to offer Call of Duty on Steam simultaneously to Xbox after we have closed the merger with Activision Blizzard. So there you go on that one as well. So it looks like Nintendo's getting this based off of the concerns from Sony. So sometimes, you ever heard of like the Streisand effect, right? When you start complaining about something, even though nobody really cared about it, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Things were going to be just fine. You complain about it, then it brings more attention. Then all of a sudden you make things worse for you. I think maybe that's just a little bit of what's going on here. But at the same time, Sony could be thinking, well, at least we know for sure now, right? Because they were saying, you're trying to make us like Nintendo. Well, I don't know. Try to make it like Nintendo that has Call of Duty. That's what Sony said. Microsoft trying to make us like Nintendo. Well, Nintendo trying to make them like Sony. They get Call of Duty. You want it or not? It's 10 years. It's on the plate. So I found this to be extremely funny. As you can tell by my voice and my jokes. Maybe they're bad, but still, I have to say them. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. We'll see when this actually goes through. Maybe we'll get Call of Duty on the Nintendo Switch next year. I'm not a Call of Duty guy. I'm not going to be super hyped for it or hype it up as if Call of Duty's great, because I don't think it is. I will check it out for work-related purposes, of course, just to see how it is. But I'm not a Call of Duty guy. Used to play them back in the day, not anymore. But I'm happy for those that are looking forward to Call of Duty. And of course, this is a good thing when it comes to next generation for Nintendo, Nintendo's Nintendo Switch 2, and how it'll be on there. Because I'm guessing more people would probably want to play it on there because better graphics and all that. So it's good for that in the future as well. 10-year commitment. Pretty good from Microsoft, I guess, right? So what do you guys think about this when it comes to this 10-year commitment, essentially daring Sony to say, oh yeah, like what's going on here? You're trying to wall us out. Well, I guess not anymore, because Nintendo accepted this deal. They hashed out this deal before Sony could even stop complaining, right? So what do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, guys. We got a little bit of a surprise when it comes to Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion on the PlayStation 5 and also on the PC. The reviews went up a little bit early, and I found this to be interesting because Square Enix opted to do it this early because the game doesn't come out until next week. Now, Square Enix has a game coming out this week on Friday called Dragon Quest Treasures, and there's no reviews for that game, but they allowed reviews for the PlayStation 5 and PC version of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. Now, I'm not sure if they felt that the reviews were going to be higher than, you know, what is displayed here, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure at all, because usually you wouldn't allow reviews this early if it was going to be a 77. Now, if you had like a high 80s or even mid to high 80s, I can see that. But the fact that it's a 77 and they allowed it to be before another big game that they have coming out, which is Dragon Quest Treasures, is definitely interesting. Now, I understand it because Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion is a bigger franchise in terms of what it is. Like, Crisis Core is a bigger game than a spin-off game on one system, right? Because Crisis Core is on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, PC, and it's Final Fantasy, and it's a really good remaster of the game. It has better graphics, it has better audio quality, it's a solid remaster, much better than the remasters that we see at this point in today's day. It's somewhere between a remake and a remaster, but it has the original story, so they didn't want to call it a remake. But it's interesting to see this because out of 47 critic reviews so far, it has 36 positive reviews, so this is like 75 or so and up, and it has 10 mixed reviews and 1 negative review. I didn't expect it to be this low when it comes to Crisis Core, because the Crisis Core on the PSP, that has a mid-average 80s or mid to low 80s score. So I'm not expecting exactly the same score when it comes down to it, but I would be lying if I was saying that I didn't expect it to be higher than it, because Crisis Core to me was a great game. It was fantastic. I didn't know what the score was beforehand, but if I would have known, I would have expected like, hey, yeah, this game would be like mid 80s or so, because it's just such a great high quality remaster that runs really fluid and it's good, and the fact that 77 is the score is very interesting. So one thing to note though, guys, with this whole PSP with the review score versus this, that was obviously a long time ago. The game came out in 2008 on the PSP hardware. There was different times, different standards, different reviewers. Everything was different, so you can't do a one-to-one comparison. It scored an 80-something 15 years ago, so it should score the same or higher now. It doesn't always work that way. I just felt that it would probably be maybe a little bit closer to what it got before, considering it's so much better than what we had from a tech perspective. Now, let's read some of the high reviews, some of the mid reviews, and some of the low reviews to get an idea of what's going on with Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. I won't read too many of them. I just want to get to the gist of it, looking through like the top, middle, and bottom. So, Noisy Pixel gave it a 9.5 out of 10 and had this to say: Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion is a brilliant example of what a remaster should be. It's the same game, I remember, but with updated graphics, controls, and combat make it so much more. You might feel fatigued with the respective mission structure, but there's so much for new and old fans to enjoy in this release, and I'm happy that it received the level of attention it deserves. This is a must-play game for any who truly wishes to understand the incredible narrative of Final Fantasy VII and what makes it so great. So awesome review from there. Now we're gonna go ahead and get into an 80s review from Gaming Bolts, and they had this to say: Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion is an impressive visual upgrade. Above all else, proves that the quality of the original game, yet again, much of it can feel dated at times, but thanks primarily to its enjoyable combat system, it remains an easy game to recommend. So essentially what's going on here, what it seems like, is some of the structure and some of the things that they do within it, which I do remember the PSP game was absolutely annoying, but I remember the PSP game being annoying because of the controls too, also like the little wheel that was spinning, like random RNG stuff. All that was kind of crap. Like, I did not like that back then, but I still played it because it was technically impressive for what they're doing on the PSP. It was like a little PS2 in your pocket with the PSP, and I just liked the combat. I felt that it was fun with some annoyances here and there. Now, I'm going to read one more 80s here from VG247, highly respected review website for the most part. Repackaged into one of the sharpest remaster releases I've ever seen, it's relatively irresistible package, warts and all. The blemishes upon its carefully airbrushed visage are, in many ways, part of the charm. This is a joyous little time capsule of the 2000 Square, and perhaps a curious appetizer before Remake Part 2. It's easy to recommend, so interesting there as well. Now let's go ahead and move on to some of the 70s reviews. So this comes from The Gamer. They gave it a 7 out of 10 and had this to say: Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, which is not the way that you're supposed to say the game, it's Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, is an excellent remaster that evolves the original game in ways I didn't think possible, but even that can't take away from an experience that even in 2007 was holding itself back to satiate the platform it called home. The repetitive combat and clumsy environmental design to serve to make the otherwise spectacular world feel strangely artificial, while its campy dialogue and drab character writing doesn't exactly gel with the remake it serves to apply greater context to. New audiences deserve to play the game, and I'm so glad they finally get that chance. But eventual wish fulfillment doesn't lessen the hurt of inedible disappointment. Zack is still an adorable puppy I need to protect, though. So they like it, but it has quite a number of issues. Now let's go ahead and move over to some of the 60s reviews. So Games Radar Plus gave it a 6 out of 10 and had this to say: Crisis Core Reunion is a fascinating look into Square Enix of the past. Messed with Final Fantasy VII's current trajectory in the remake saga, Zack might be a dunce, and the early 2000s era script fails him miserably, but he's utterly lovable by the game's end, far outshining Final Fantasy VII stalwarts like Aerith, who mostly seems present for their cameo impact. The retooled combat system is Crisis Core Reunion's most impressive upgrade, an elegant and electrifying system that always keeps you on your toes with its smooth, digital mindwave implementation. Given Zack's inevitable role in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Crisis Core Reunion is an essential part of the overarching remake saga, even if the writing does hold it back. So people seem to be complaining about the writing and stuff like that. The combat is good. The combat's really good, but the writing and some of the issues there is the problem. And remember, this is the PS5 version, so it's running at a silky smooth 60 frames per second, running at 4K. So it looks good, runs good. Metro Game Central, I'm not even going to really read their review. Of 4 out of 10. That's for like broken games or near broken games. 4 out of 10 inspired piece of Final Fantasy VII fan service and a very good remaster, but as a standalone game, the story and gameplay has very little value. I'm not so sure about that. I can't agree with the 4 out of 10. That's like for games that are like broken and don't run as good as this game and don't have all the different aspects. So I can't agree with that. I can't agree with that, but it is what it is. But overall, what did you guys think about Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion's score here? I thought it was going to be a bit higher, but it is what it is. You're still planning on picking up the game. And for those that are looking for the Switch version, they didn't review the Switch version because that's probably going to be the worst looking and running version of the game, therefore lower review scores, probably, potentially. So for those who want to know about the Switch version, wait till I get the game. I'm going to be picking it up next week, or wait till we start seeing some footage, but it's 720p, 30 frames per second. From what I understand, it runs okay at that, but once again, it's not the silky smooth 60 frames per second or 120 frames that the PC versions have. So this is not based off the Switch version at all, so keep that in mind. So what are your thoughts on all this, guys? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, guys. We've got a launch date for River City Girls 2. Yes, finally it is happening. We've got some high-profile independent games coming out in December. So River City Girls 2 will launch for the PS5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch on December 15th for $39.99 worldwide. Developer WayForward has announced the side-scrolling beat-em-up sequel first launched for consoles on December 1st in Japan and Asia. A physical bundle of River City Girls and River City Girls 2 is also available for PS5, PS4, and Switch with English subtitles. And I gotta cop me some of that. So this is a cool beat 'em up. You got 6 playable characters with their own fighting styles, upgradable movesets. It's really fun. And also, guys, remember, there is a online game trial with the Nintendo Switch from right now, I think until next week or something like that, to where you can play River City Girls 1 if you have Nintendo Switch Online. So go download the free trial, check it out. You can probably beat it in the same day that you download it, and then get ready for River City Girls 2 next week or so. You've got enhanced combat, you got guard crushes, lift combos, and more. Bigger city, new locations, multiple routes, secret areas, and you've got solo plus team battle, locally and online multiplayer, new henchmen, new recruits, loads of NPCs, interaction with them, or punch them in the face, plus cameos. Gotta love those cameos. Awesome anime intros, comic book style cutscenes, English and Japanese voiceovers, spectacular soundtrack. This game is going to be lit. I enjoyed the first game. I'm looking forward to this one right here. So what are your thoughts on River City Girls 2? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, guys, we're going to discuss what Capcom could be cooking up for the Game Awards 2022 with Jeff Keighley. Because on Twitter, Capcom USA, and it's very important that we put Capcom USA, has put this tweet out saying, "We're excited to watch hashtag the Game Awards this Thursday for all the incredible announcements and awards. Make sure to tune in. Twitch TV, the Game Awards Championship there." So Capcom doesn't have a ton of games nominated this year for different categories or anything. It's not like Capcom had a big blockbuster game for the year that came out. I mean, they did have some DLC, right? Resident Evil stuff going on. They did have Monster Hunter DLC, but they didn't really have many nominations or anything. So this statement on Twitter isn't because they have some type of nomination and they want to support the developers behind the games, or they're really rooting for those games to win awards. It's really because they have announcements, or there's going to be an announcement of something there, because they say all the incredible announcements and awards. So incredible announcements. So obviously they're probably including themselves in this category. Otherwise, I don't see the need for Capcom USA to come out and say anything on this unless they have something cooking up for this. So what could it be? Well, there's been a lot of rumors when it comes to the Nintendo Switch, and also when it comes to just gaming overall. So let's talk about the Switch stuff first. There was a rumor a while ago about Resident Evil for the Nintendo Switch. So this isn't a port of the other Resident Evils or cloud version or anything. This is supposed to be a Resident Evil Revelations style of game, a game built specifically for Nintendo hardware. Now, they've done this before many times in the past. I think that it could happen again here. Now, is it the infamous Resident Evil Outbreak or Resident Evil Outrage or something like that? Not Outbreak, that's already a game, but like Resident Evil Outrage or whatever it was. It could be that, Revelations 3, whatever people want to call it. Now, we haven't gotten really anything on a rumor update outside of a Nate the Hate and also RGT video that they did. Check that video out if you haven't seen it, where they talk about potentially what's going on with that, but there really hasn't been anything else outside of that. So I'm hoping, not sure if it's going to be, but I'm hoping that it is a new Resident Evil game built specifically for the Switch. We saw what Monster Hunter did, Monster Hunter Rise. Now that's finally getting ported over to other systems as well, but we saw how awesome that game looked back when it was first revealed in 2021 or 2020, whatever the case is, and I think it launched in 2021, so when it was first revealed in 2020. So that was awesome, right? So that was really cool to see, and I think that they can do some special things with Resident Evil. Now this also could be a reveal of a Monster Hunter type of announcement, right? Some type of Monster Hunter announcement, maybe a new Monster Hunter, a tease of a Monster Hunter game. I know that the next Monster Hunter game is definitely in development, but they have Monster Hunter Rise that's right around the corner for Xbox and PlayStation. So I'm not so sure if that's going to be it. Now, another kind of out there rumor, but was already in the Capcom leak, is a Mega Man game. Now, we've been talking about Mega Man for quite some time on this channel in terms of if it can come back and kind of what's going on with it. We have the Mega Man Battle Network collection that's coming out early next year, so that's awesome. But a new Mega Man X game, that's the game that people are kind of pinning on hopefully what Capcom does, but we're gonna have to wait and see on all of that. I'm confident that Capcom has a Mega Man game. I'm just not sure if it's going to be announced at this Game Awards or anything like that. I'm hoping for the Resident Evil stuff, but once again, you never know. I mean, I'm just gonna wait and see. I don't have a lot of faith or confidence in the Game Awards. It could come out and be a big fat nothing burger at the end of the day. So we're just gonna have to wait how it is. Remember, I will be streaming the Game Awards this Thursday, so make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, get ready, because it's going to be a very fun stream on the channel. So what are your thoughts on this, guys, when it comes to everything that we discussed here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next video. Peace.